wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. This is Steve coming to you from Conway, Arkansas. And thanks to my patrons for supporting the show. Patreon.com/SundayStoic if you want to check that out. Earn rewards, chat with me, stuff like that. Without the patrons, I couldn't afford to get new microphones and things when they die or to continue hosting the podcast. In fact, my current podcast, I notice I have 80 hours worth of episodes posted, and at 100 I'll be full, and I'll have to upgrade to another plan to keep the podcast online. Oh well. Anyway, this week we are going to hear from a lengthy reading from Epictetus from the Enchiridion. It's the Enchiridion number 33. It's a long list of how to conduct yourself in society, how to be a Stoic on a day-to-day basis. Now, some of the things in here I wonder if we would completely agree with today. Some of them I think are products of the Roman Empire, maybe not a universal philosophy that spans the ages, but I think it's worth talking about these things. I counted at least 16 bits of advice in this reading, so let's listen to what he has to say. And then we'll talk about those 16 things and which ones we most agree with and want to take with us as we move down the Stoic path ourselves. Chapter 33. Lay down for yourself from the first a definite stamp and style of conduct, which you will maintain when you are alone and also in the society of men. Be silent for the most part, or if you speak, say only what is necessary, and in a few words. Talk but rarely, if occasion calls you, but do not talk of ordinary things, of gladiators, or horse races, or athletes, or of meats or drinks. These are topics that arise everywhere. But above all, do not talk about men in blame or compliment or comparison. If you can, turn the conversation of your company, by your talk, to some fitting subject. But if you should chance to be isolated among strangers, be silent. Do not laugh much, nor at many things, nor without restraint. Refuse to take oaths, altogether, if that be possible, but if not, as far as circumstances allow. Refuse the entertainments of strangers and the vulgar, but if occasion arise, to accept them. Then strain every nerve to avoid lapsing into the state of the vulgar. For know, that if your comrade have a stain on him, he that associates with him must needs share the stain, even though he be clean himself. For your body, take just so much as your bare need requires, such as food, drink, clothing, house, servants, but cut down all that tends to luxury and outward show. Avoid impurity to the utmost of your power before marriage, and if you indulge your passion, let it be done lawfully. But do not be offensive or censorious to those who indulge it, and do not be always bringing up your own chastity. If someone tells you that so-and-so speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself against what he says, but answer, "He did not know my other faults, or he would not have mentioned these alone." It is not necessary for the most part to go to the games, but if you should have occasion to go, show that your first concern is for yourself. That is, wish that only to happen which does happen, and him only to win who does win, for so you will suffer no hindrance. But refrain entirely from applause or ridicule or prolonged excitement. And when you go away, do not talk much of what happened there, except so far as it tends to your improvement, for to talk about it implies that the spectacle excited your wonder. Do not go lightly or casually to hear lectures, but if you go, maintain your gravity, and dignity, and do not make yourself offensive. When you are going to meet anyone, particularly some man of reputed eminence, set before your mind the thought, what would Socrates or Zeno have done? And you will not fail to make proper use of the occasion. When you go to visit some great man, prepare your mind by thinking that you will not find him in, that you will be shut out, that the doors will be slammed in your face, that he will pay no heed to you. And if in spite of all this, you find it fitting for you to go, go, and bear what happens, and never say to yourself, it was not worth all this, for that shows a vulgar mind, and one at odds with outward things. In your conversation, avoid frequent and disproportionate mention of your own doings or adventures, for other people do not take the same pleasure in hearing what has happened to you as you take in recounting your adventures. Avoid raising men's laughter, for it is a habit that slips easily into vulgarity, and it may well suffice to lessen your neighbor's respect. It is dangerous, too, to lapse into foul language. When anything of the kind occurs, rebuke the offender, if the occasion allow, and if not, make it plain to him by your silence, or a blush, or a frown, that you are angry at his words.
And now a quick break while we go to the forum so we can pay the bills. Wow, there we go. A big old list of advice from Epictetus. And I'm not going to hit on every nuance of what he had to say, but let's talk about some of the major highlights here. Number 1, set up a code of conduct for yourself, how you behave. And behave that way when with others and alone. So that way you are the same person at all times. Remember, the sage is the same person whether they are on the rack or whether they are on TV. You know, they are the same person. That's the idea. They are always at peace, at ease. They're going to be moral no matter who they're hanging out with. They're not going to change their conduct and steal hubcaps off of cars one day, another day hand money to the poor on the street. They're going to be the same person in all situations. He also says to not speak too much. As the saying goes, it's best to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open your mouth and leave no doubt. Just don't overtalk. Don't overshare. The more you talk, the more likely you're going to slip up and go down a road that Epictetus would recommend we avoid traveling. So when we are talking to others, he says, do not talk about useless stuff. Instead, if you're going to talk about philosophy or something that will improve people. So he says, especially avoid talking about men. Don't complain about other men. Don't compare men. Don't compliment men. And that's probably, I've heard that before, that's advice from the modern era as well. Don't complain, don't compare. And I usually don't hear don't compliment, but don't complain, don't compare, those sorts of things is a way for you to be happier in your own skin. Just avoid complaining and comparing and criticizing, right? These are things we're trying to avoid doing. He says don't laugh too much, and I guess that's that could be good advice if you tend to laugh at dumb stuff or laugh all the time or whatever. But I also wonder if that's not very manly to laugh. That may be something that the Romans thought showed weakness, and I don't know. I think having a good sense of humor and laughing is a good thing, assuming it's not because it's drug induced or something. But that was another bit of advice there. He says, avoid taking oaths as much as possible. And if you are going to take an oath, just say yes or no, rather than swearing upon the blood of your ancestors and things of that nature. Probably good advice. Try not to be like those around you. Especially if you're surrounded by non-philosophers. The stain on your neighbor is going to be the stain on you if you're hanging out with them too much. You will pick up their prejudices. You will pick up their habits if you are not careful. So keep that in mind when hanging out with the crowd, to be in the crowd but not of the crowd. And in life in general, take only what you need to sustain your life, to sustain your happiness, in that, you have what you need, not that you have too much. You have a simple roof over your head, simple clothing, simple foods, but you're not wasting your life chasing after superfluous extra stuff. Only take what you need. He also recommends no sex before marriage. But don't judge others if they don't follow that advice, and don't walk around telling everyone how awesome you are because you're not having sex before marriage. So that one will ring a bell for those of you who grew up like I did in the Catholic Church. But obviously that one probably ignored for the most part these days. It may be a good way to avoid diseases and unwanted pregnancies and things, but you'll have to apply your own philosophy to whether or not one should avoid that. Number 9, don't worry when others speak ill of you. In fact, you can say, well, if that person had known everything about me, they would have mentioned more than that, which is a great way to roll with it. Oh, hey, did you hear that so-and-so said that you suck, or whatever. Oh, really? Well, man, if only they had seen what I did yesterday, they would have a lot more to say about how terrible I was. So roll with it. Just say, yep, sure am. Okay, moving on then. And don't get too upset when others don't like you. You can't control that they don't like you. One that a lot of people talk about here, that he talks about the games, but I think we should apply it to all situations. He says, when you go to the games, if you go to the games, don't pick a team. Oh, I really hope so-and-so wins, and then get all excited or all upset when they don't win. He says, ask for things to happen. Hope that things happen as they do happen, and all will go well. And don't get too excited about things. Don't talk a lot about it when it's over, unless it benefits you to do so. Like, did you see the stamina of that person? Boy, I'd like to figure out how to train to be that strong. If there's some value in it, then by all means talk about it. But if it's just like, man, I wish they'd have given 110%, and I think they were only giving 104% tonight, boy, that kind of, avoid that. But I think in all situations, it's that amor fati idea. It's the idea that try to want things to happen as they do. Figure out how you're going to roll with it, how you can take advantage of it, or how you can live through it, rather than wishing things would go a certain way, because you have no control over how those things go. So it's silly to have a vested interest in how things go that you can't control. He says if you go to lectures, make sure you really want to go, first of all. And if you do go, don't make a fool of yourself. Listen politely, maybe ask some questions, but don't blow up, don't scream, don't make a fool of yourself. If you're going to meet someone important, keep in mind what Zeno or Socrates would have done. Make sure you read some Socrates so you understand what kind of things he's talking about. I mean, I've read some. I'm still not an expert at Socrates, but Socrates didn't get all intimidated because he was going to meet the king or someone in charge that could put him to death or whatever. He would question him about philosophy just like he questions someone on the street. That king is just another person. They are not better than you. They are just in a position of power. And that position of power is an indifferent. 13, be prepared that the important person won't be there nor care about you. But if you do get in there, don't ever say, well, that wasn't worth all the trouble. So what he's saying there is, let's say you are going to meet someone important. You decide it's worth it. You need to do it. Tell yourself ahead of time, premeditatio malorum. Well, I'm going to get there. The door's going to be shut. I'm going to get there and I won't be able to find them. They won't want to talk to me. They're not going to want to chat with me at all. But let's say you decide, well, it's still worth me trying for whatever reason. So you go through all the effort to make it happen. And let's say it does not happen. Or even if it does happen and you're like, well, this was stupid. Why did I waste my time? Never say, well, that wasn't worth it. He says, if you say that, then you do not understand the value of externals. You have a relationship with externals that is invalid. You expect too much from external things. Only say, well, my will was in the right place. What I had hoped would happen did not happen, and leave it at that. Don't complain. Don't compare. Don't criticize. Number 14, don't brag about yourself. You like to hear your own stories more than other people like to hear your stories. Number 15, avoid making men laugh too much. That's kind of an odd one, but I guess you could make yourself out to be a fool instead of someone who would be taken seriously. But I also think that humor can be a great gateway to get to know people, to break the ice. So I would take that one with a couple pounds of salt, or kilograms of salt, if you will. Number 16, the last one, avoid foul language. And if your friend's using bad language, let them know that you disapprove, even if it's only with a grimace or a scowl. Show them that you disapprove. So he's saying, control yourself. Try to be dignified. I do that on the podcast typically, but I don't always do that in regular life. I learned to cuss pretty well from my family, but maybe I should drop it a little bit. But anyway, you don't want to go around looking like an uneducated fool by cussing all the time. There are places and ways to cuss that work, but just using it indiscriminately every other word probably is not going to set you up for success in this world. Of course, what others think of you is none of your business, but you can control what others should think of you. Right? You control what others should think of you, not what they do. So make it so that they should think of you as a decent person, one who's not a braggart, one who takes things seriously, one who acts like a decent person when they are by themselves, when they're on the internet and no one's watching, as well as when they're in public. And then you'll be on the road to being a better human being if you can do these things. So let me know, what do you think should be removed from this list? What do you think should be added to the list? What is a good list of rules to live by that you think would be a great case for living the good life? There's a list kind of like this found in the Havamal when we discussed that Viking text with Dr. Ben Wagner a while back. Kind of an interesting overlap. I think there was a little bit in there about not laughing too much, about keeping quiet, keep your eyes open, that sort of thing. So what do you think should be in there? Well, thanks for listening. Once again, you can join as a patron to avoid annoying commercials, things like that if you wish. Patreon.com/SundayStoic. Meanwhile, like the show, review it, share it with friends, and I will see you next time around right here on the Sunday Stoic Podcast. Remember to seize the day. Carpe diem.